All Cooper CPAs, located in the heart of East Nashville, offer a wide variety of tax services for individuals and businesses. Contact them at 615-257-0646 and visit their website, allcooper.com, for a full list of services.
Well, hello, everybody. Coming up next on Political Soup with Crom Carmichael, we're going to have an update for you on the Affordable Health Care Act. Violence raging, not a big surprise when you consider where. And some new twists to getting a car loan. And did you pay your internet tax this week? All that and more. Coming up next on Political Soup.
Bandwidth for today's show is brought to you by SoftLayer.com. We love SoftLayer here at Talkapolis. They are the greatest hosting company ever. They make everything easy. Check out their website at SoftLayer.com. Thanks again for sponsoring the show.
Talkapolis, the social media TV network for your city.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Political Soup. I'm Joe Williams with the man, Crom Carmichael. You see, I have my OneNote card. You see, Crom has all the information.
You got all these papers.
That's, but it goes with exactly. I want to go back to the very first show. What you've taught me from the start, and that's knowledge, understanding, leads to wisdom.
There you go. You got it. And that's everything we're talking about today. We're going to talk first about the facts. And a lot of what we're talking about today, frankly, is follow-ups to what we've talked about before.
Right.
That's kind of the nature of public policy, or when it works or when the shortcomings. And then we'll talk about what the implications are. So that's where we are.
Apparently, some folks think I owe a few people an apology because last week or the week before, I got a little excited during our discussion of Obamacare, made the comment, if it's that doggone good, you folks who voted for it or even were in the group, maybe you voted against it, but you're in Congress, you need to live with it too. And I had some of my liberal friends tell me that I owed some folks in Washington an apology. Crom, I'm not so sure I do anymore.
Well, it's fascinating because what happened was there was this movement on the part of Democrats to actually try to pass legislation so that they didn't have to comply. Because, see, legislation was passed, I don't know whether it was 10 or 15 years ago, but there was legislation passed that says that if the Congress passes a bill that imposes something on the American people, that they have to live by the same law. And so the Democrats have started trying to push a bill through Congress giving them an exemption on Obamacare because it wasn't particularly clear in the bill that did pass. And Republicans got wind of that, and so Republicans are now saying, by golly, we're going to pass legislation that absolutely requires that members of Congress, their staffs, and the people in the administration, I understand, including the president and the vice president, have to live under Obamacare.
Yeah, I got to be honest, I guess that's my big confusion is why legislation was passed 10 or 15 years ago. I go back to the issue of common sense. You're talking about wisdom, and I talk a lot about common sense. And how in this country do you not have your leaders live under the same thing they're making you live under? Why did it take legislation to do that? And why would anybody try to attempt to legislate against it now?
Well, Joe, all right, I'm going to answer your first question first, and that is that Congress regularly exempted themselves from laws. For example, Congress exempted themselves from the minimum wage law.
Right.
Congress exempted themselves from the sexual harassment laws, Title IX laws, discrimination, all these different laws because they didn't want to be subject to lawsuit.
Okay.
And so they set themselves apart. They set themselves literally above the law. And now, so that then when the Republicans took over in '94, one of the planks in their 10 deals was to write a law and bring it up for a vote. And they wrote it and brought it up for vote, and it passed. There were 3 things in that I can't remember I remember there were 10 things in the promise.
Right.
There were 3 things that were brought up for a vote that failed. The 10 promises weren't that we would enact legislation for these 10 things, but we would vote on these 10 things.
Right.
One of the ones that they did vote on and passed was a requirement that Congress live under the same laws that they passed for the rest of us. But the Democrats know that Obamacare is a terrible piece of legislation, and it is. And now we're beginning to see more and more Democrats. You have Max Backus, who came out and said it's a train wreck. Here's one, and this is very interesting. This is a quote from a person who is running for Congress for a special election. This is the Democrat speaking during the debate with the Republican. Obamacare is extremely problematic. It is expensive. It is $500 billion higher cost than we originally anticipated. It is cutting into Medicare benefits, and it is having companies lay off their employees because they are worried about the cost of it. That is extremely problematic, and it needs an enormous fix. Now, that's a Democrat who is standing before the voters, trying to win votes.
Well, he's not going to do well, is he?
What's a she?
She's not going to do well.
Yeah, her name is Elizabeth Bush.
She's a Democrat. She's in trouble already.
B-U-S-C-H.
I don't care.
C-H.
She's in trouble already.
But anyway, she's running. And so, Democrats are now recognizing that as this bill, as Obamacare gets implemented, people will find that it has enormous flaws. It's running up the cost of insurance. The coverage is not good in the standpoint that getting coverage is very, very hard. And doctors are not going to take Obamacare patients if they are paid at the same rate as Medicaid. And so it's a disaster, and as the Democrats are now saying, it's a train wreck.
Well, I was going to say, why did they not see that earlier? Of course, it was a 2,200-page bill.
Well, and what did Pelosi say?
Yeah.
We have to vote for it to find out what's in it. So the answer to your question is they didn't know how bad it was until after they'd passed it.
Well, that's kind of like, Aaron Maddox was saying earlier, it's like buying baseball cards in a pack. Did I get a good one or not?
At least you know their baseball cards.
I was going to say, at least you know their baseball cards.
So at any rate, so it's going to be a mess, and the people will see that. And I think the midterm elections, you've got a lot of Democrats now who are announcing they're not running again. Max Backus just recently announced he's not going to run again. I don't remember that Jay Rockefeller has already announced.
Wow.
Has already announced in West Virginia he's not running again. So there's 3 or 4 Democrat seats in very, very red states who have announced they're not going to run. And so unless Republicans nominate somebody like that foolish fellow from Missouri or the one from Indiana, Murdoch, or I don't remember the guy, Aiken, unless they nominate really poor candidates, then Republicans will start picking up Senate seats.
Understanding that each of these seats have to be dealt with on an individual basis, but a name like Jay Rockefeller, et cetera, do you think these are situations where they're just ready to retire, they're ready to quit, or do you think they always want to know that they won their last election?
I think it's a combination, Joe. I mean, Jay Rockefeller is not a spring chicken.
Yeah.
Max Backus has been in the Senate, I think it's either 36 years or 30. Okay. This would have either been his 6th term or his 7th.
Wow.
And so I think it's a combination of the two. But frankly, I think there are also some Democrats who are not flaming leftists who recognize that Obamacare is a disaster, and they don't want to be around either for the election, and even if they won, they don't want to be around to take the heat, because this is not a partisan thing. When you pass legislation that says there's no way for an insurance company to put a cap on lifetime expenditures, and you cannot discriminate based on pre-existing conditions, those two things alone will cause insurance rates to go up. Now then the question is, do they go up 15% or do they go up 50%? To be honest with you, and this is, once again, let's get back to the knowledge, the understanding, and the wisdom. Think about this for a second. If you have $1 million lifetime cap, an insurance company can, across a broad pool of insureds, can say, okay, this is how much this is the number who might end up at $1 million. They can figure out how to insure that. But if there's no lifetime cap, it could be $5 or $10 million
or more.
And then multiply that times a number of people. They have no way of. I mean, they have to raise their rates dramatically in order to ensure that. Then, if you take out the pre-existing conditions, the other thing is Obamacare is going to absolutely nail young people, because it also says that there has to be community ratings, which means if you've got an older person who smokes and is obese, that the younger person is going to pay the same premium as that person, even though the younger person runs, eats well, takes care of him or herself. But yet the premium has to be the same regardless, and that is just foolish.
Well, wait a minute. Now, there's a trade-off to that, because the 50-year-old who smokes and doesn't eat well and is obese, just pick on me, you know, all they're doing is protecting that young one's Social Security. It's a trade-off. You know, they'll get it back on the back end.
Yeah, nice try.
Well,
Nice try. So anyway, when you put all that in the mix, the Democrats in Congress know that it's going to be a mess, and that's why they were trying to exempt themselves. And I actually applaud the Republicans for saying, no, we're going to live under this law, and by golly, it'll be so bad, we'll all want to change it.
I was going to say, I will go as far as to give a shout out to Representative Dave Camp, who is the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. Pretty powerful little group there.
You bet.
Who is pushing this legislation to make sure Congress and the executive branch, the legislative branch, everybody falls under the same rules as the American people. And I give him a shout out because that's exactly what I called for last week.
Yeah. And he was listening. He must listen to our show.
He's got Talkapolis somewhere on his. Probably, you know, he's sitting there and he think he's go doing a meeting, and he's actually got his little smartphone there, and he's watching and listening as he sits.
Vanity is a big thing.
Boy, it is, isn't it? Wow, we better take our break now so we can kind of pump our heads back down. When we come back, violence. Violence. Yep. You know, we talk about it. And there's violence all over the world. You're going to be surprised. We'll be back in just a second.